Everything I've told you was only to test your patience and to show you, Lord Trnt, how much I want to serve you. I think you should be aware of all things you don't know. I don't want you to be deceived by the princess's actions. She no longer has any honor, and she has none of her father's or mother's honor either. She could have satisfied her appetites honestly with a valiant and virtuous knight like you, or with many others who are in love with her, but the sky, the earth, the sea, and the sands abominate the sin she has committed, and still commits daily. Only our Lord would permit such an abominable crime of adultery without punishing her. If you knew what I know, you would spit in her face. But why should I try to exaggerate such an ugly crime with unnecessary words? She has become involved with Losetta, that's his name. He's a black slave, a Moorish gardener who takes care of the orchard. And don't think, Your Grace, that all these things I've told you are simply fables, because I'll let you see it with your own eyes. She has made me live with this enormous pain for a long time. How many kinds of herbs I have gone to pick, and then place them inside her to destroy the fetus in her infamous stomach. Oh, wretch, the poor thing was punished because of my sin. Its body wasn't buried, but instead it made its trip down the river. What else could I do so that the grandchild would not be seen by the emperor, its grandfather? She is called the pleasure, if it can be called that, and I have the blame. Trnt, with all the melancholy he felt, said, Widow, your words have gone straight to my miserable heart. They hurt me more deeply than I ever have been hurt before. I beg you, virtuous lady, show me the cause of my pain, because otherwise I couldn't believe words that sound so unreasonable. It seems impossible that such a celestial person would freely place her beauty in the hands of a black savage. Then he was silent. Widow Repose was very worried because Trnt did not fully believe her false words. During this conversation, the emperor came into the chamber, and when he saw Trnt, he took him by the hand, and they both went into a room to talk about the war. The widow was left alone, and she began to say to herself, Since Trnt did not believe me, this deception I have planned won't succeed, but I'll make him give in to me, even if I have to sell my soul to the devil to do it. Furiously, she swept into the princess's chamber. Then, feigning laughter, she showed her the gold chain Trnt had given her, and she said, You'd be astonished, my lady, if you knew his latest whim. He wants to bring a galley here and carry you off to his land by force. And she continued to invent stories almost in mockery. When the princess saw that she was mocking Trnt, she became inwardly very angry, and she left and went to her sitting room. She began to think a great deal about Trnt and how deeply she loved him, and of the gifts that he gave to her ladies because of her. The thought of how much she loved him made her reflect deeply, and brought her bitter pain. After thinking for a long time, she dressed and went out to the hall to talk to Trnt, because she knew that he would soon have to leave for the field of battle. Widow Repose waited for Trnt and said to him, My captain, I would like to have your word that you will not tell the princess, even in jest, what I said to you. Before 24 hours have gone by, I will let you see it with your own eyes. Widow, said Trnt, I would be very happy if you showed me, and so that you will have complete confidence in me, I promise by the blessed St. George, in whose name I hold the honor of chivalry, not to tell a soul. As the emperor turned, he saw the widow, and he said to her, Go quickly and tell the empress and my daughter to go to the orchard right away. I'll be waiting for them there. Soon all the ladies were with the emperor, and they talked about many things, including how the emperor had sent the order to the camp for 2,000 lancers to come and accompany the captain. When the princess heard the news, she became very agitated, and pretending that she had a headache, she said, I will not deprive myself just because the captain is here. I'll let my hair down, even though he's present. Then she let down all her hair, allowing it to hang loose, and it was the most beautiful hair any maiden ever had. When Trnt saw it in all its splendor, he was astonished, and his love doubled in strength. The princess was dressed that day in a skirt of white damask, and at that moment her hands were struggling with the cord of her skirt, and she seemed to be in great anguish as she walked alone through the orchard. The emperor tried to question her about her illness, and asked her if she wanted the doctors to come. She answered no, that my illness requires neither doctor nor medicine. At this moment, Widow Repose got up from where she was sitting, and taking a companion and 2 squires along as escorts, she went to a painter's house and told him, "Since the festival of Corpus Christi is near, I would like to put on a play. You're the best painter in the world. Could you make a mask of flesh color according to my instructions? It should be over a very fine black skin that would look like Lucetta, the gardener of our orchard. It should have hair on its face, some white and some black, and I'll put gloves on my hands so that I will appear entirely black." "Madam," answered the painter, "that can be done, but I have a great deal of work right now. However, if you pay me well, I'll put aside all my work so that I can serve you." The widow reached into her purse and gave him 30 ducats in gold so that he would do a good job, and he made it with the exact shape and features of Lucetta. When the princess had strolled through the garden at length, she saw Lucetta pruning an orange tree because it was his job to work in the garden, and she went up to him to talk. The widow, who had returned by now, was watching Trnt, and she made a sign to him so that he would notice that his lady was talking to the negro, Lucetta. Trnt turned around, for he was at the emperor's side, and saw the princess speaking animatedly with the black gardener, and he said to himself, "Oh, what that wicked widow! She's still trying to make me believe that what she told me is the truth. No matter what she says or does, no one can tell me that the princess would do such a terrible thing, and nothing in the world would make me believe it unless I see it with my own eyes." At that moment the emperor called a maiden and said to her, "Come here, Praxedis," for that was her name. "Go over to my daughter and ask her to call the captain and tell him that she wants him to leave for the camp soon. Often young knights will do more for ladies than they will for themselves." The princess replied that she would, since his majesty had asked her to. After she had spent a while talking with Lucetta about the orange trees and the myrtles, she went back to strolling through the garden. When she was near the emperor, she called to Trnt and told him that she was tired, and she asked him to take her arm so that they could walk through the garden together. God knows how happy Trnt felt when the princess said this to him, and when they were some distance from the others, Trnt said, I only have you in my thoughts now, and I spend day and night thinking of you. If fortune would like to have a little pity on me, let it allow me only a part of my desire, because then I will become the most glorious knight who ever lived. All I need is a little hope from your excellency." The virtuous lady kept her pain secret, and replied, "Trnt, my lord, harbor no doubt whatsoever about what I tell you, because even if I have occasionally been cruel with you, I don't want you to think I have not always been with you in spirit. I have always loved you and looked on you as a god, and I can tell you that as my age increases, so does my love. And now the time has come when you can know fully whether I love you, for I want to give you the prize of your love, and I beg you, please, to guard my honor as you do your own life." Trnt's heart was filled with happiness when he saw that this lofty lady had shown her great love for him, and that he was on the path of possessing the crown of the Empire of Greece. He felt that he could conquer the entire world, and he wanted to tell his cousin Deiphobus, the Duke of Macedonia, about it, because he thought everyone would feel just as delighted as he did. And, as a greater pledge, he took out a reliquary he carried, and made the princess place her hands there, asking her to declare that she would marry him, and she very happily swore it. Then Trnt said, "My lady, I make the same oath to be faithful and true to you, and to never forget you for anyone else in the world." When all this had been done, Trnt knelt down on the ground to kiss her hands, because he was more afraid of offending her than of a saint. The princess said, "To keep my honor and my reputation, I am holding back what you most desire. After your great victory, we will take that sweet, delicious fruit of love which is plucked in matrimony, and you will wear the crown of the Empire of Greece." In a trembling voice, Trnt said, "I am so anxious to have what I desire most in the world that every hour I wait seems like 1,000 years. I would like to change that future time to the present." The princess, with a kind face, quickly answered, "I cannot completely resist your entreaties without offending you, but shame and fear hold me back, telling me to keep myself from losing what I will never be able to recover. I beg you, let us leave this conversation so the emperor will not begin to wonder about me. You talk to Placer de Movida, and whatever you decide, I will agree to." They kissed many times, without anyone seeing them, because the orange trees were between them and the emperor, and protected them from everyone's view. When they returned to the emperor, the princess saw him deep in thought, and said to him, "My lord, what are you thinking about?" The emperor answered, "My daughter, I want to hold a celebration today in Trnt's honor. For every battle he has won on land and on sea, I want that many flags placed in our church of Santa Sofia. And for every castle, villa, and city he has conquered, I want that many standards placed around the high altar with Trnt's coat of arms. For he has brought this empire so many benefits, showing himself to be truly a lover of the public good and a conqueror of the world." The emperor sent for all those in his council and told them what he wanted, and they all praised him, saying it would be a very good thing to do. When they made their calculations, they found that in 4.5 years he had conquered 372 villas, cities, and castles. When the emperor held his council and Trnt found out that he was discussing these things, he did not want to be present, and he went to his chambers. On leaving the orchard, Trnt said to Hippolytus, "Tell Placer de Movilla to go out to the great hall. I have to talk to her." Hippolytus took the message, and she quickly went there. Trnt embraced her, and smiling, he took her hand. When they sat down by a window, he said, "I have been with her highness, and we have exchanged many words of love, and she has promised to do whatever you and I decided. I was to tell you all my concerns, and tonight I would speak with her majesty." We held hands and solemnly swore that as long as she and I should live, I would be her servant, husband, and lord, and I would have a resting place of perpetual glory and delight in her chambers, in her bed. Placer de Movilla listened to Trnt. She thought for a moment, and then said, "I was not born among the lower classes in Rome. My mother was born in that city, and my ancestors were noble citizens of Rome. Trnt, lord of the world, why did you speak to me so timidly? Is your grace unaware of what you have in me? My heart, my body, my will, and all my thoughts have no other purpose in this world than to serve your grace. I won't say anything more to you, because a knight who is waiting to go into battle shouldn't be worn out by words. But when the emperor is dining, I'll go to your rooms and give you news that will please you very much." Then Trnt kissed her eyes, and Trnt kissed her eyes and her face with great joy. He left her, and Placer de Movilla walked to the garden, where she found the princess with the emperor. The emperor went into the upper chambers, and Placer de Movilla and the princess entertained themselves, and decided what time Trnt should come. The princess told her everything that she had said and done with Trnt, and Placer de Movilla was very glad to see how happy her lady was. The hour arrived when the emperor was to dine, and Trnt did not forget to go to the palace quickly. He met Placer de Movilla coming down the stairs to his quarters. She told him how it was to be done, and what time he should come. Then they went back to the way they had come. After everyone in the palace had retired and was asleep, the princess got up from her bed, and the only ones with her were Placer de Movilla and another lady named Lady Montblanc, who knew all about the affair. The princess put on a dress that the emperor had ordered made for her wedding. Neither he nor anyone else had ever seen it, and it was the most beautiful dress anyone had ever seen at that time. Her gown was of crimson satin embroidered with pearls. Her mantle was lined with ermine, and on her head she wore a stunning imperial crown. Placer de Movilla and Lady Montblanc took lighted torches in their hands and waited for Trnt to come. When the clock struck 11, which was the hour that he was awaiting so anxiously, he quickly went to the garden gate. Climbing the stairs to the sitting room, he found Lady Montblanc with a lighted torch, and as soon as she saw him, she knelt before him and said, "O knights, the best and the most beloved in the world by a beautiful lady." And Trnt replied, "Maiden, may your wishes be fulfilled." They both went up to the sitting room and waited there until Placer de Movilla came in, happier and more content than Paris was when he carried off Helen. They went into one chamber while the princess was coming in from the another door, and they met very happily, and Trnt knelt on the ground, and she did likewise. They remained like this for some time, and then they kissed, and their kiss was so delicious that one could have walked a mile while they had their lips pressed together. Placidomavia saw the danger in their dilatoriness, and he went up to them and said, I declare you good and loyal lovers, but I will not leave this battlefield until you are lying in bed together, and I won't deem you a knight if you make peace before spilling blood. They stood up, and the princess took the crown from her head and placed it on Trnt's head. Then she fell to her knees and said, O Lord God, Jesus Christ, all-powerful and merciful, who, having pity on mankind, came down from heaven to earth and took on human form in the most virgin womb of the most holy Virgin Mary, your mother and Our Lady, and who died on the tree of the true cross to redeem the sins of mankind, and came back to life on the third day by your power in a glorified body, true God and true man, may it please your most holy majesty to allow my lord Trnt to possess this crown with the title and reign over all the empire of Greece after the death of my father, inasmuch as your divine goodness has granted him the grace to have retaken it and freed it from the infidel. And may this be done in honor, praise, and glory of your most holy majesty and of your most holy mother, and for the benefit of the holy Catholic faith. When she had finished her prayer, the princess got up and took some scales that the emperor used for weighing gold coins, and she said, My lord Trnt, good fortune has decided that on this day I will submit to your power of my own free will, and without my mother's and father's consent, or that of the people of Greece. Here I hold some scales of perfection. On the right side is love, honor, and chastity. On the other side is shame, infamy, and grief. Choose which of these pleases you most, Trnt. As one who always wishes to serve honor, Trnt took the scale on the right-hand side and said, Before I was given news of your majesty, I had heard of your virtues, which as now I know to be too many to mention. For your highness practices virtue continually and has such great beauty that it is far greater than that of other ladies in this world. Then, holding up the scales on the right, he said, I place love and honor above the crown and the scales with all the firmness that it has, and I beg you dearly to speak no more of this. Rather, with true will, let our marriage take place. The princess answered, You have embraced the scale of love and honor. Now I beg you to preserve my chastity, and for the present do not violate it. Otherwise, what will the emperor say, and my mother, and the entire country who think of me as a saint? What will they say of me? There will be no one who can trust Carmenisa. And when you are gone away, if I am offended by anyone, who will I go to for help? A brother or a husband? If I become with child, what counsel could I take? Trnt could no longer withstand the tears of the princess, and smiling, he replied, My lady, I have been waiting so long to see you in your nightgown or completely naked on a bed. I don't want your crown or your kingdom, but give me all my rights which belong to me, as our Holy Mother Church commands with the following words. If a maiden gives herself in true matrimony, he is able, but does not have copulation after marriage, is a mortal sin. As for me, my lady, if you love my body, you should love my soul too, and your majesty should not willfully cause me to sin. You know very well that if a man goes into battle while he's in a mortal sin, God will not come to his aid. And as he was saying these words, Trnt was not slow about removing her clothing. He unfastened her skirt while he kissed her again and again, saying, Every hour that we're not in bed is like a year to me. Since God has given me such a treasure, I don't want to lose it. Placidomavia exclaimed, Oh, my lord, why wait until you are in bed? Do it on top of her clothes so that they can be a more certain witness. We'll close our eyes and say that we saw nothing. If you wait for her highness to take off her clothes, you'll have to wait until morning. Afterwards, our heavenly Father could punish you as a knight unworthy of love. Heaven help you if you should fail at a time like this. Seeing that you were such a polite lover, our heavenly Father wouldn't want to give you a morsel like this again, nor would he have anything to give you. There's no man in the world who wouldn't swallow it, even if he knew for a certain that he would choke to death. The princess answered, Be quiet, you enemy of all goodness. I would never have thought, Placidomavia, that you could be so cruel. Up to today I always thought of you as a mother or a sister, but now you're now you're like a stepmother because because of the reprehensible advice you're giving about me." At this point Trnt had finished removing her clothing, and he took her in his arms and placed her on the bed. When the princess saw herself in such a situation, and that Trnt, who had taken off his clothes, was at her side working the artillery to penetrate the castle, she saw that she could not defend it by the strength of her arms. She thought that perhaps with feminine arms she could resist him, and with her eyes pouring forth tears, she began to lament. "You are trying to keep me from loving you. You want to use your absolute power over me and make me very angry. Trnt, open the eyes of your understanding and look at the misfortune that awaits you, and when you recognize it, give way to reason and restrain your lustful appetite."